extremely relevant information. To follow up on that question, that last question, we were at dinner last night and we talked about a lot of this, and Ron and I were talking specifically about getting other airlines in here. And you know, one of the things that we always seek to do is try to encourage more service in our area. However, you've got to be very, very careful and very, very sure that if you bring in another airline or you have another destination, you had really better be able as a community to support that destination and turn it into a success. Because despite the fact that you might entice them with incentives, if that destination turns out to be a failure, it's going to make it that much more difficult to get in airlines in the future, because nobody wants a failure. They don't want it, we don't want it. And just to be able to make up that revenue is not the point. It leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouth, and it makes it that much more difficult. So, you know, I get questions all the time when I go out places, well, what are you doing to get other airlines in here? Well, we're doing a lot, but like I say, we're looking at specific locations, routes, and specific airlines to try to talk to and bring in, making absolutely certain that if we get that airline in here, we feel that it's got a reasonable success rate on it, that it'll be okay and it'll continue. So it's very, very important. Sorry.
John, just real quick, on Allegiant, where did they, when they pulled out, where were they in percent of seats on flights? Because it seemed like every time I was on it, it was packed. So if it seems like...
I wish you could have flown every flight. Everything would have been fine.
So
unfortunately,
was a lot of empty seats?
Yeah. Unfortunately, they wanted like 74%, I think, was their break point on load factor. They were actually getting, if you looked at the average, around 67 to 69%. And you know, you got to remember, we've talked about this too, and that is that the demographic that flies that flight is different than a lot of other flights. You know, they tend to be young people that want to get out on the strip, walk the strip, do a little bit of gambling, spend, you know, all night walking around and having fun. It's different. Yeah, so I said I wish he was on every flight and we'd have been okay.
Well, I only went on 2.
But when you take a whole division worth of soldiers out of our community at one time, I mean, that could take somewhere close to 40,000 people in that demographic out. It's very hard to make that percentage that they wanted in load factor. Now, on the other hand, if you talk about the charter flights that we get to places like Tunica and Laughlin and all those kind of stuff, that's another demographic. You know, generally they're the older folks that are just going to gamble. You know, that we call them the geriatric flights.
Been a little close to home, didn't you?
But they're always full. You know, there's 150 people guaranteed on every one of those flights, you know, because they're different. They just go to gamble. So that's kind of what happened to us with Allegiant. Because Allegiant asked me, they said, what if we changed it from Vegas to Orlando? And I said, it's not going to be any different. I didn't want 2 failures there.
I was kind of hoping you'd add Denver.
See, Denver is the one. I mean, trust me, we're looking at that. We are looking at that. You know,
not a ski area, especially wintertime.
It's just difficult to find that airline to come in here and serve that market, but we are working on it. Sir.
Hey, John, when ask kind of a complicated question. When Forces Command headquarters moves from Atlanta to Fayetteville, North Carolina, 2011, do you know how many of the Delta seats out of here are specifically Fort Hood to Forces Command that will now not want to go probably, or may not want to go through Atlanta? I don't know, whether you go to Atlanta to Raleigh-Durham or Atlanta to Fayetteville. And again, it could be a lot of.
I don't think that would change. I think they'd still go into Atlanta to make that connection, right?
Fayetteville, I would think so.
Yeah, so I don't think that'll change. But we were talking about that flight last night too, and I believe your opinion is that one of the big reasons why that is so successful is because of the leap to the Middle East out of there. So I don't think it's going to change it significantly. I think they'll still have to go through their Forces Command wise. They'll still have to go through there as the hub to make that connection.
Yeah, but see, traditionally that Delta's price has been a little bit higher than some other stuff. So I mean the government's going to look for the best value.
Right.
If the answer is you go through Dallas, Fort Worth on American, you go to Fayetteville or Raleigh
Raleigh.
or wherever it
Yeah.
is at that particular point. I mean, is it a bargaining chip that I'm not trying to lose service to Atlanta, but if you got, I mean, Ron Berry tells me he's got 3 or 4, 5 or 6 people every day flying from Fort Hood to Forces Command.
Right.
Can you use that as a leverage point with, say, American to increase service or
And
something?
we may very well. I mean, it's a point we'll have to look at very
If you
closely.
identify that, I mean, they'd be very interested in knowing that. Now, the government contract fair, of course, will have an impact on that. Whoever gets the bid, should get the majority of the traffic. But I know that, Raleigh would be an option, and that, probably have to weigh between the two. Honestly, American provides you great service out of here and carries most of the passengers, of course. I think the fact that you have Delta service is tremendous. I think, supporting all 3 airlines is really, really important, and as long as you can keep that Atlanta service, you wouldn't want to trade it for Memphis, I can tell you that.
Any other questions? Well, as a closing, we intend to keep, and I think I can speak for John in this regard, we intend to keep people like Mead and Hunt employed to keep looking at things that are going on, because as I started this out by saying, I'm a very happy man, we're up. However, one of the bullet points that Ron put up there was industry trends will drive service. And those are the things that we don't have specific control over necessarily, but we need to be prepared in case something's about to hit us, to try to react before all of a sudden we find ourselves on the losing end here. So that's why we do this. So we appreciate it very much. John, once again, thank you very much. Would you like to add anything to any of this?
No.
Come on, does anybody believe me?
I'm trying to leave and go fishing.
He just wants to get out of here. All right, anyway, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. I know it's hard for you guys to break away, but like I said, to me, to John, you're all very, very important in the success of this airport, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you.